Hey, my name is Daniel Lona, and from time to time I ask my followers what they're struggling with in terms of their training or just how to get in better shape. And I try to respond to those questions through making a video as often as I can to questions that I think would be helpful not only to the person who asked it, but to everyone watching as well, questions that I think a lot of people are struggling with. And this week's question comes from Krista, and she asks, what I want to learn is how to really build muscle and strength. I feel my body is slower at it compared to others. Let me set this down. And Krista, that is a really fundamental question. It's a question that just goes to everything that I teach my own clients as well as everyone who follows me online and through video, which is building muscle and strength. How do you do that? There are lots of different ways out there that profess to be able to give you lots of muscle and strength. And so how do you know which ones are best or which ones are really going to be effective? So this video is designed to kind of just cut through all that noise, through all the different options out there to really simplify what you should be focusing on and how to do it as well. Krista, if you and I were sitting on a couch talking about this, I could talk with you about it for maybe 1 or 2 hours. I have so much to say. But I'm going to try to just give the highlights here. This is kind of like the highlights answer to your question, which is really important. So I have here how to build strength and muscle. I want to start by just defining the answer to that. How do you do that? I have 3 parts that I think are crucial to answering that question. And the first part is to use full body movements. And I'll explain in just a moment a little more clearly what I mean by that. But I mean a movement, an exercise that uses almost your entire body at once throughout the course of that movement, and not something that targets just a body part, like not just working your forearms, not just working your calves or something like that. So it's the opposite of that. Full body movement is the opposite of just like working your forearms, right? The second part to that definition here, to the answer of how do you build strength, is using full body movements to lift a heavy weight. And again, I'm going to define all this a little bit. I'm going to elaborate on all this a little bit more in just a second. But using a full body movement, lifting a heavy weight with a small number of reps. Hopefully you can read that. If you can't read that, you can hear me say it. So that's the definition. Using how do you best maximize building strength and muscle? And by the way, strength and muscle, it's hard to develop one without the other. If you're going to build strength, you're often building muscle, and often building muscle by building muscle, you often build strength. So they're closely connected. But the short answer is this. You use full body movements, lifting heavy weight for a small number of repetitions. And again, I'm going to elaborate on that, but that's your short answer. That's it in a nutshell. That's how you do it. So let's get into some details on what I mean by this. First of all, full body movements. Let me have you key in on 3 key movements that I think if you spend 80–90% of your training time on, well, you should spend 80–90% of your training time on these 3 movements to build more strength and muscle. First one, squat. You're familiar with that. I'm sure almost everyone's heard of it and almost everyone has done one. But again, I'm going to get into more detail. The second one, a deadlift. You may not have done that, and that's okay. The third is a press. And I mean an overhead press. So if you had a weight in your hand right here, pressing straight up above. That's what I mean by an overhead press. If you spent 80% of your weight training time or even just physical exercise time on these 3 movements, you will do wonders for building strength and muscle. So let's break this down a little further here. Those are the movements that I would want you to focus on. By the way, if you don't know how to do a squat or especially a deadlift, I actually have 2 videos of those on how to just basically do those with good technique and good form. So you can look at that on my YouTube channel or on my website. You'll find how-tos on there for how to do those. For the press, I don't have a video for that yet, but if you ask me, I might make one. All right, so the next part of this, small number of reps. What does that mean, a small number of reps? Well, I'm going to define it here in this section in terms of sets and reps. 5 by 5. And I feel like I constantly interrupt myself, but that's all right. I'm going to do it one more time. If all this seems familiar to a video that I've done recently, stay with me. There's actually new information here. I know this kind of overlaps with something I talked about in a recent video, but there is new information here that I'm going to talk about. So, small number of reps, 5, sets of 5 reps. So every time, let's say you're going to do a set of squats, you would do 5 squats, and you would do 5 rounds of that. What else I mean by that is that when you hit number 5, you're using such a heavy weight that you really don't want to go much past that. So you're using a weight that you really couldn't do 8 to 12 reps with. It's too heavy for that. 5 is the better number. Where if you had to do one more, you could, but that would be about it. So you stop at 5 instead. You would have to find a weight that works for that kind of description that I just gave. All right. So that's how I'm defining lifting a heavy weight as well as the number of reps. Those are two kind of closely connected, where if you're getting close to a maximum of what you can do at 5, then you know you're lifting a heavy enough weight to build excellent strength and muscle. So this is the short answer, Krista, and for everyone else watching, this is the definition of how you do that. These are the 3 key movements that you should focus on, and these are the sets and reps that you should aim for when doing these 3 movements. Now, if you're unfamiliar with any of these 3 movements or how to do them well, watch my videos on how to, and you don't have to worry about hitting 5 by 5 right away. This set and rep format is more, it assumes you already know how to do these movements well, at least proficiently. So once you're proficient with them, then you can start targeting heavier weights where you're doing doing workouts with 5 sets of 5. One other thing I want to add, do each movement twice a week. That's how often you should be doing each movement. So hopefully that gives you a good short answer on what it means to build strength and muscle, and also which movements you should be doing, how often, and how many times. But I also want to get into even a little more detail. Like I said, I go on this for hours, but I promise I won't make that video that long. So just stay with me here, because this next part is also important. Because this is really helpful, hopefully, for you if you had no clue, and even if you had some clue, hopefully this crystallizes it even more. But the question still remains, how do you do a squat? I mean, with what type of weight? Do you use a sandbag? Do you use a dumbbell? Do you use a barbell? Do you use a kettlebell? Do you use a TRX? There's lots of different things out there. What should you be focusing on? That's what I'm going to talk about right now. So there are 3, and there's nothing on here, but there will be shortly. There are 3 popular formats for training with weights and getting stronger. And I want to identify each one of those 3 formats of strength training, or weight training, I guess you could say, and their pros and cons. So that way you can kind of see what the benefits and drawbacks are to each, as well as learn what I think is the best choice for you. Okay? So let's begin. The first one, which you've heard of, is bodybuilding. And I'm going to measure each of these on 3 different variables here: muscle strength and the time commitment that's involved. Now, bodybuilding, you might think, well, I don't want to do bodybuilding, I'm not interested in bodybuilding. But guess what? About 90% of all the people who are working out in a gym with a weight are doing bodybuilding. Even if they don't want to, even if they don't think they are, they are. What is bodybuilding? Well, it's a way of working with weights that's designed to maximize how much muscle you build on your body. They target specific body parts, usually doing reps of about 8 to 12. Or, when you're doing a set, when you're doing an exercise, you're doing 8 to 12 reps. And it really just came from the sport of bodybuilding, which became popular in the 60s and 70s. And then America just took that as how it trains for fitness whenever it's lifting a weight. And there's some drawbacks to that, right? Because it's built off of a sport designed to get you really big and build as much muscle as possible and make you look a certain way. And that's not exactly what everyone's looking for. So there are some drawbacks to it, but let me talk about the benefits. Bodybuilding, if you're doing that kind of weight training, you will build a lot of muscle. And that's why I put this red X here, this is the high end of the spectrum. You will build a lot of muscle doing bodybuilding. That's what it's all about. And anyone who works on a machine or is doing curls with dumbbells, that's all bodybuilding type movements that you see in gyms. And it will build muscle if you do it properly and structure your programming and format the right way. But the strength gains are good, but they're not amazing because again, it's designed to build a lot of muscle, not as much strength as possible. So if you're someone who wants both muscle and strength, and I am, and I hope you are too, you don't want just choose one or the other, you want both. You will get a lot of muscle, but the strength gains are good, but they're not phenomenal. The time commitment though is the problem. To do a really good bodybuilding program, you're gonna have to put in a lot of time. I'm talking 4 to 6 days a week for about 4 to 6 hours a week. The hours minimum, definitely 4 to 6 days a week and a minimum of 4 to 6 hours a week. And I say this coming from someone who knows bodybuilding. That's actually how I started my own personal fitness journey with weights. Back when I was 12 years old, I was excited about bodybuilding. I did bodybuilding for about 12, oh gosh, I don't want to say how long, but many years I did bodybuilding. So I have a fondness for this. So when I critique it, it kind of comes from that place. I enjoy it, but I also have learned what the drawbacks are. And it takes a lot of time to structure a good bodybuilding program. Most people don't want to do that. Most people, yourself included, probably don't want to put in 4 to 6 hours a week just on weight training alone. So that's the drawback. But another format to consider that's common is barbell training. And what is barbell training? Well, if you have no idea what a barbell is, it's a long metal bar, weighs about 45 pounds, and they'll put big black plates on each end. So you've probably seen that somewhere, somehow. That's what a barbell is. The training that usually goes along with that are a few key lifts, and they do match kind of what I said earlier that you should be doing. So barbell training is actually an excellent form of getting strong and building muscle, but there's, again, some drawbacks that I'm going to address in just a moment. When you do barbell training, you're probably doing squats, deadlifts, or maybe an overhead press with a barbell, and also probably bench press, the other common movement with a barbell that you can see. In doing that, you build a good amount of muscle, not quite as much as bodybuilding because barbell training is more a pure strength training type of approach to weightlifting. Which is why here you can see that you are getting all the way in the end on that strength spectrum where you are really, if you hone on those movements and do proper barbell training, you will get basically as strong as possible because you can load up those bars with as much weight as you want. So you're actually getting close to where your maximum potential is for lifting heavy weights. So you will get very strong and you will build a good amount of muscle. Not quite as much as a pure bodybuilding program, but a good amount. The time commitment is a lot better than bodybuilding. So as you can see, overall, as I've described so far, barbell training is kind of a better choice than bodybuilding for most people, except for those who actually want to compete in the sport and get as big and massive as possible. But I'm just talking about regular folks who just want to get in some better, want to be in decent shape, don't want to be overweight, that kind of thing. Barbell training is good on that. Now, where it falls short for most people is that it requires a lot more skill than, it just requires a lot of skill. I can compare it to a lot of things, but it requires a lot of skill. So it's not a good choice for someone who's beginner or even intermediate in their knowledge and experience in lifting weights. It's really more of an advanced option. And not only do you need good technique and excellent form in doing the movements of barbell training, the barbell lifts, but because you're lifting really heavy weights loaded up on that bar, there's a higher risk of injury. And that's also a drawback, especially for most people who are not super athletes, who are not trying to get as strong as humanly possible. So it's really not the best choice for a beginner or intermediate person even. And that's why I still don't quite recommend this being as most people's first choice. Ultimately, can be good for you, but I wouldn't start there. What I would start with, I want to discuss now, is kettlebell training. And if you know anything about me, you know I'm a big fan of that, so it may not come as a surprise. But let me explain a little bit why I think it's the winner here. Now, on the key points that we're talking about, how do you build muscle and strength? You're going to get a good amount of muscle and a good amount of strength. I mean, kettlebell training is first and foremost a strength training style of fitness. And so you're going to do really great with that. But you're not going to get quite as much strength max. You're not going to go all the way to the max like you could with a barbell. Because, by the way, for those people who have no idea what I'm talking about, who have no idea what a kettlebell is, let me show you. I'm going to go out of frame for just a sec, but let me show you. So this, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, this is a kettlebell. It's an iron weight, looks like a cannonball with a handle on it, and it allows you to do a number of different movements with them. Some of them traditional, like I already talked about, like a deadlift and a squat, and a few others too that are unique because of its construction that are really helpful for fitness. But as far as kettlebell training goes, as you can see what I just showed you, they're not massive, right? So you're not lifting as much weight as in barbell, which means you won't get super strong compared to barbell training, but you're also going to be safer because you're not maxing out on the heaviest weights possible, which makes it a really great entry point for most people. And you will still build muscle. I guarantee. I've never had a client not build muscle off of kettlebell training. But here's also the great benefit to it: time. This is the winner on time. If you are looking for something that accommodates your busy schedule, this is the one, because the time commitment here is so low relative to barbell training and especially to bodybuilding that it really fits great for most people's schedules. You can do it on about 90 minutes to 2 hours a week and get phenomenal results off of that. So just a few workouts a week of a half hour and you're golden, or even maybe just 2 workouts a week of about 40 minutes or so and you're golden. And part of the reason for that is for its time efficiency is it combines strength with cardio, so you get more done in less time. But another reason is you can also just stack the movements. I always talked about deadlifts, squats, and presses and all that. You can do all that stuff without having to change the weights or set the weight down. You can do all of it continuously too. So it's just it's a very efficient movement. But basically, those are the benefits to kettlebell training. I think it's the best entry point for beginners and intermediate people looking to build strength and muscle. These are your 2 other very popular alternatives. Barbell training is excellent, but it's just not a great starting point. Bodybuilding will get the job done in terms of building a lot of muscle and a good amount of strength, but there's just so much time involved. You're also doing unnatural movements. If you're not a fan of like tricep kickbacks and doing this or this kind of thing all the time, which most people aren't thrilled about, that's also what a lot of bodybuilding involves. So you're going to do unnatural movements that many people find boring, frankly. But so it gets the job done, but it just doesn't fit with most people's schedules. All right, so that's sort of an overview on bodybuilding, barbell training, kettlebell training. Those are your 3 big key options here on how you can do those movements that I talked about. So let me kind of transition into that now. So if I'm telling you that kettlebell training is really effective, takes a moment to fall. How do you plug that into these 3 movements? What do you do? Well, I want you to learn these 3 movements. So like I said, I have videos already on squat and deadlift. What do you need to do those? Well, you can use a kettlebell. You can also use a dumbbell in some instances. For a squat, you can hold a dumbbell right here and start learning your squat right away with that. And you can ultimately still put them at your sides too, but you're not going to get as strong as you could if you used kettlebells for that, frankly. You can hold a lot more weight with a kettlebell right here than you ever could with a dumbbell held at your sides or in front of you. So that's another advantage to kettlebells. It's going to allow you to do a heavier squat. Now, if you want to go to your heaviest squat, of course, you can go eventually to a barbell, but like I say, that's further down the road. And the deadlift, the progression would be to start with a single kettlebell on the floor, work your way up to 2 kettlebells, and then that can be enough. And then actually what we do in kettlebell training is we transition that movement into a kettlebell swing, which has even more benefits, frankly, than even just the deadlift. And then finally, the press, same thing. Here, a press, I would start with either a single kettlebell or a single dumbbell, and then transition into using 2. So basically, that's kind of my theme here, talking about each one of these. Start with 1 dumbbell or kettlebell for each of these, then move to 2 as you get stronger and know the movement. And then from there, ultimately, if you want to take it to a barbell, you can do that as well. All right. So that's basically a rundown on how you plug in all those movements into either barbell or kettlebell training. And hopefully that helps you. Like I said, I have videos on how to do each of those. One final thing, I know I'm talking a long time in this video, but I just want to talk about one final thing because you're curious, like, how do you know you're being successful at this? Even if you follow my awesome advice on using kettlebells to get stronger with these 3 movements, how do you know they're working? Well, actually not too complicated. Strength is actually pretty easy to measure, right? And I think that's not a surprise that that you know you're getting stronger by, are you lifting more? Are you lifting more weight? Are you able to do more sets? Are you able to do more reps? But the key part to that is just make sure you're tracking. Don't guess. Don't guess to find out if you're getting stronger. Track each week. How many sets did you do with the weight? How many reps did you do? Are you ready to move up in weight? Are you using a heavier weight this month than 2 months ago? Very simple in those ways to know if you're getting stronger that way. Muscle, though, is you have to probably be a little, well, the answer to it's a little less obvious. So you have two ways of gauging muscle. One is the mirror test. That's pretty self-explanatory. Look in the mirror. Do you look better this month than last month? But to be even a little more accurate with that, you can do a before-after photo to know. I know I'm not telling you anything you don't know already, but I just want to make it, sometimes I don't know, sometimes the obvious stuff just eludes some people. So hopefully, maybe that helps. But if you want to be really specific on whether you're gaining more muscle, you want to measure a particular metric, which is lean body mass. Lean body mass is how you know, or I'm sorry, scratch what I just said. Lean body mass is your weight basically minus body fat, essentially. So that way, even if you're gaining body fat, you can figure out whether you've gained muscle too, because it's putting aside however much body fat you're carrying at a given time. So what you need to know to be able to measure lean body mass is your body fat percentage. You can usually buy one of those handheld things on Amazon for about $25, $30. It's not expensive to measure your body fat, and then also just obviously a scale to know your weight. If you know your weight and your body fat percentage, then you can just go online, bodybuilding.com. I know I said don't do bodybuilding as your primary thing, but bodybuilding.com has a good calculator on there. If you type in bodybuilding in Google and then add lean body mass, or just type in lean body mass calculator, you'll find a site that will do it for you. Plug in those two numbers of yours, and then you'll get your lean body mass. It's a weight in pounds or kilograms if you're outside of America. And basically just track, for week one, what's your lean body mass, and then check again 2 weeks later, has it gone up? You want your lean body mass to go up. I know we always try to lose weight, but when it comes to adding muscle and getting more muscle on your body, you want to increase your lean body mass. And if that's going up week after week or month after month, you know you're being successful at adding more muscle to your body, even where you may not be able to quite see it in the mirror. You can be sure that your lean body mass, if that's going up, then you're definitely being effective in your training to build more muscle. And strength, like I said, just track what you're doing through your exercises, and you'll know if you're improving in that way. All right, so hopefully this helps you on how to build more strength and muscle. This is the short answer, this is the simple answer, but if you have questions, comment below this, whether it's you're watching this on YouTube or on my website, just comment below, or you can even email me and ask me questions. I'll be glad to answer anything that I didn't answer here and help you even further. And I'll see you in the next video.